Hey everyone, you're listening to Beyond Recognition. It's been a while since the last episode came out. I got soaked by the routine, and just like everybody got into the holiday season helter-skelter. Quite a difficult one this year. I got quite a serious personal loss that kicked me back from doing this podcast, and what else? We have a few wonderful episodes coming out in January. If you're listening to this podcast for the very first time, my name is Dan and I'm a former music journalist, a professional publicist, and your personal linguistic weirdo exploring the topics of creativity. And we're getting back with the episode 4. This one is quite a special one. This time around, I won't be asking you to sign to our YouTube channel or Patreon page, though if you still want, the details are in the description. We are here today to help a person. My guest today is Nicholas Borgir, drummer, composer, a virtuoso musician, and the member of a large variety of acts associated with black metal, extreme, and death metal. As some of you might know, Nick is currently suffering quite an extreme health condition due to the kidney failure. It's quite a widespread diagnosis, and just like billions of people, Nick is surviving getting a dialysis treatment. A lot of people do help Nick. Thanks to my dear friend The Demolition Man for putting us in touch. Since I started my past as a music fan, I was amazed, for the lack of a better term, by the mutual aid in the metal and punk communities. And it seems to me that right now we can really feel it. Not only by people all over the place helping Nick making donations, but also setting up a large festival event to help the metalhead overcoming his issues. And I hope with this episode we could help Nick and get some attention to the situation of the extraordinary artist. So there is a GoFoundMe campaign I would mention probably a dozen times going through this podcast, but please go through the link, make a donation, let's help the metalhead. And right now, fasten your seatbelt and get ready to hear my conversation with Nicholas Borgir. I think what would worry most of our listeners is how do you feel yourself right now?
I feel really positive. Obviously, the dialysis treatment and the kidney failure it's had a huge impact on my life, both professionally and personally. I spent my entire adult life as a professional musician touring the world, for almost 33 years. And when my kidneys failed at Christmas time, that all stopped immediately. And I had to undergo dialysis treatment 3 times a week until I can find a kidney donor and get a transplant. So it's taken a long time to come to terms with it and accept it, but at least I'm still alive, and the dialysis treatment that's what's keeping me alive. Without it, I would die.
Yeah. So, as some of you might know, Nicholas is currently having some serious health issues, and we're here to help the true metalhead. So, in the description to this video or the podcast episode, you would see the link leading to GoFoundMe campaign where you can make a donation. So, Nick, could you please give us some insights, like what is your current program with the treatment? Because obviously you mentioned the donor, right?
Yeah, well, I have dialysis every week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for 4 hours each time, and it's sometimes it's very tough because sometimes it totally wipes me out. I'm fatigued all the time, and I just feel tired constantly. And then other times it's not so bad. I have energy, and I try to stay positive always, and try to stay proactive. I'm going to the gym every day, and I'm on a strict renal diet. There's certain things you can't eat anymore when you have kidney failure. So I'm working really hard and staying positive. The goal is to have a kidney transplant eventually.
Yeah.
Hopefully not too long in the future.
Well, we all hope that everything would work out the best possible way for you. And obviously, while thinking about my questions, knowing you and having some of mutual connections, I was thinking about this beauty of the metal community, which is a typical thing for all the communities, of course, as a sociological factor, but I think more than anywhere, people from punk rock and metal communities support each other, and right now we can see how active they are helping you. If, I'm not talking about like making donations, but even I was really amazed to discover like the festival that really was set up to support you.
Yeah, the support's been absolutely amazing. I'm really overwhelmed by this the love and support I got from the metal community, fans, and also fellow musicians, peers, and it really opened my eyes to just how much love people have for me, and it's made the support has made me more determined to work hard, lose the weight, go to the gym, and do everything positive to make me eligible for an organ transplant.
Sure. And I think once again that's a beautiful side, because when you are touring your as you've been doing for, quite a big part of your life, obviously you meet the fans, but you don't have this necessarily personal connection. And right now everything sort of became more personal for you, and you can see like how different individuals support you, which is like really, that's truly amazing from my personal perspective, like how the community works and helps. Not, I'm not talking about like your difficult situation, but how everybody get to help, like all the musicians, artists, their fans, peers, and so on.
It's amazing. The response is overwhelming, and I'm truly humbled by everyone's support. And it's sometimes when I'm feeling down and sad, and I kind of miss my old lifestyle, touring and playing cons, playing live. I just got to remember that I've got a lot of love and support out there, and the dialysis treatment that's what's really keeping me alive. And I'm just staying positive and focused so I can work towards getting the transplant. It's the response has been overwhelming. It's absolutely amazing.
And it really, like what we're discussing right now, it really makes me think like how much these concepts shift and evolved, or like since you've started playing, even in terms of like their definition. Like obviously you became a well-known drummer in the 90s, but coming from the 70s and 80s, how did you oversee the sense of the metal community?
Well, I've always been into metal and rock since an early age, and my my stepfather he had great taste in music. He was a complete asshole, but he had great taste in music. And so that's where my beginning started with the music. And I started with rock, and then got into heavy metal, and then as I became a teenager, that evolved into thrash metal, and then death metal, and then black metal. And the love throughout the whole genre and the subgenres is, the metal community is one of the most loyal and strongest communities in the world, I think. When one of us is sick or needs help, everyone comes together. There's a really overwhelming sense of unity and love within the metal scene, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, that's true. But like, do you think these days, with the lack of tape trading, not that significant impact of the fanzines, but with the dominant role of the social media, it has changed? I mean, I'm talking about like how these factors affected like the entire concept of like the community, specifically like the metal community. Like once again, from your perspective.
I think, like social media and, music streaming, unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. That's where the industry is now. The diehards will always buy the hard copies, the CDs, the tapes, the vinyl. I mean, I think vinyl now is outsells every other format.
Sure.
But you know, like I think the whole community has evolved with the technology and the times. It's I hate iTunes and Spotify because they don't treat the artists with respect in terms of royalty rates. It's absolutely offensive and appalling. Um, the CEO of Spotify is a billionaire, but he doesn't pay the artists anything. It's insulting. I think, yeah, the diehards. I mean, I'm old school, so I'm from the tape trading days, the fanzine days, and they're great memories, and it's part of the whole metal nostalgia trip. But I think the community has evolved with the times. I mean, fans are always going to buy the T-shirts at the concerts, and the diehards will always buy hard copies of the music. Streaming is just a convenience now. It's just the way it is. It's unfortunate, that technology and the music industry has gone this way, but we have to roll with the times.
Also, I notice this kind of a big difference, right? Like how to define the true fans. That's a person who would probably overpay to get the licensed T-shirt. So a part of the sales would get to the artist versus buying something on the local market and print it in some sort of basement.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many bootlegs now, and people doing the DIY thing. In a way, it's good though that that your music is getting out there and your band and your name is getting out there, regardless. Because it's any promotion is good promotion.
Sure, but eventually you understand that metal music and punk rock can be a mass phenomenon outside of the subcultural sense, and when it starts getting a little bit outside, people really call it alternative rock, which happened when
Yeah.
you firstly, got the recognition with Cradle of Filth. So, how did you react when these cultural changes started happening, when this shift happened?
Well, you just have to roll with it, really. It's part of the evolutionary process, I suppose. As human beings and artists, we all grow and evolve. And that's the same with music, scenes, trends. Fashion. It's you just have to kind of go with it, whether you like it or not.
Even though if we would think about like the mass market, obviously you understand that all the important bands that affected the 80s, they came from major labels. I'm talking about like Death or Iron Maiden, or all the important
Yeah.
bands. I'm not talking even about like Zeppelin and Sabbath, who really got signed to major labels. But eventually, like, you understand that the music gets to the underground, which is why in the 80s and coming to 90s we got artists like, once again, Dark Throne, I got Cradle, Filth, and so on. So, like, how did you feel these changes, once again, coming from the underground, and then you got the chance to become a part of some new scene, like something was happening in your life. Like, what was your perception sitting behind the drum kit?
Well, I mean, I've played at all different levels. I've played small club shows, backyard parties, arenas, for open air festivals. Like I say, you kind of go with it. It has ups and downs, and you just have to accept. One day it's this, the next day it's something else. I mean, even the black metal scene now is kind of commercial. If you compare it to 30 years ago, in the early 90s when it was very underground and very cloaked in infamy and controversy. Now it's, I mean, there's Hollywood movies being made about black metal now. It's
And how do you personally feel about this?
it's just evolved. And it's when something is like controversial, or it, the the government fears it. Most young people tend to be drawn to it. There's a morbid curiosity. People are intrigued by controversy and.
But I think one of the biggest advantages of, once again, Lords of Chaos getting to mass recognition through Netflix is the fact that, like, a lot of people won't notice that these were some of the most brilliant musicians and composers. Even if we would talk about Mayhem, we can take Freezing Moon as an example of a beautiful composition, like how iconic it is for these days and how interesting it was in structural sense, textural, and so on. Like, you from your seat, you understand that how revolutionary were those things, even though there was this sort of moment of disguise attached to it, right?
Yeah. For the record, I absolutely love Mayhem. They're probably my favorite black metal band of all time, and I'm very good friends with the guys. Great guys, great musicians. Myself and Hellhammer, Jan Axel, have been friends for many years, and we text each other regularly. But when you look at like a Mayhem concert now, there's way more people at a Mayhem concert today in 2023 than what they would have been in like 1990.
Did you get the chance to see Mayhem back in the days?
The first time I got to see Mayhem was around 1997.
Mm-hmm. So it was already, sort of post Euronymous lineup.
Yes, yeah. I never got to see them with Euronymous. Because I lived in England, and they were in Norway. But when I moved to Norway to join Dimmu Borgir, I became friends with a lot of the black metal scene there, which was quite ironic because I remember many people used to talk shit. Many of the Norwegian bands would talk shit about Cradle of Filth in interviews because we were the most popular band, but we weren't from Norway. But then when I moved to Norway, we actually became friends. We like the same things. We're the same people. We're just from a different culture. And Cradle of Filth, that was we were from the UK, so our music was very much influenced by English folklore. The English bands, Sabbath being one, Iron Maiden, King Diamond, Bathory. But yeah, it's everything evolved, and even death metal and black metal kind of crossed over.
Sure.
Which I thought was amazing. But in the early 90s, like the black metal elite from Scandinavia hated death metal. They hated like the Florida sound and like the European death metal bands, because it was too polished and too perfected, I suppose. But now it's all the same. I mean, you see kids, at festivals and concerts, they'll have their battle vests on, and there'll be black metal bands, death metal bands, thrash metal bands, traditional heavy metal bands, power metal bands, all wearing the patches. I think metal is universal now.
And I think the case, what you mentioned with Dimmu Borgir and right now with Shining, is really an important one because you have two bands, one of which you've been a part of, one of which you are a part of right now, with a different cultural background to yours. And I assume your conversations would be different even from the linguistic standpoint. So how do you describe being in these musical situations and how different it was, versus, let's say, playing in Brujeria?
With Brujeria, there's I don't speak Spanish, but I understand it, especially the bad words. And with the black metal thing, with Dimmu coming from Norway, it was the same thing. I picked up the Norwegian language, so I could understand the concept of most conversations, but I would answer in English. And everybody speaks perfect English in Scandinavia anyway, so it wasn't a problem. We had a common interest, and that was the music. We all felt the music, so any language barriers or cultural barriers would just disperse because we're all so focused on the music. And the same with Shining, because I have a primarily a black metal background. Doing any black metal project is quite natural for me. Like I understand the music immediately, so it's quite it's a challenge, but it's still quite easy for me to adapt.
And obviously, like a lot of the people forget about the fact that your musical journey is often a reaction, political, social, cultural, and there's a kind of one way of looking at the things, meaning what did you bring to the project A or B, and quite a lot of projects you've been a part of were formed to a certain degree when you came in. So what it was like for you to deal with these people in different situations, having a certain basis of the musical language which was formed by the previous records or rehearsals, and then you come in and you need to find your way to work on somehow.
Like I said, the music is the easy part for me because how I see the music, like the riffs, as jigsaw pieces in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that this piece will fit with this piece and that piece, and that's how I see music in my head as jigsaw pieces, and I just arrange them in my head, and when I execute that on the drums, it just seems to work. And most of the time, the other musicians like my ideas and like my influence in the music. So I've been fortunate and lucky that way. Not every idea I have is the best idea, but that's the whole point of being an artist. Just trial and error, and most of the time we all share the same vision and want to achieve the same goal.
And there is also a process of search involved from your end, right? Obviously, like the way of putting your 10 cents in a certain musical situations might be different from just like, all the projects would be different.
Yeah, I mean, I've been quite fortunate where most of the projects I've been involved in, they kind of let me do my own thing, and most of the time it works out. They like my ideas, so it's very easy to work with other musicians and artists. Sometimes there'll be parts where they request it to be a certain way, and that's fine. But most of the time, I have creative freedom with regards to the drums, and and it seems to work out. So it's cool. It's good.
One of the most active things for you right now is Barstol, your hardcore band, and it was quite
Yeah,
surprising for a lot of people who've been associating your name with extreme metal to discover this project. So how did it all happen?
I love all music, Dan. I love metal, thrash, death metal, black metal. I like old school hip hop. I like outlaw country. I like 70s disco, 80s pop. Good music is good music. There's no boundaries or there's no limit for me. Good music is good music. It's that simple. And I've always been a fan of punk and hardcore. And one of my all-time heroes is Jeff Hanneman from Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff was a punk. He loved metal, but in his heart, he was a punk. I've always loved that kind of music. Because it's aggressive. It's basically how thrash metal was born. It was a mixture of traditional heavy metal mixed with punk, and that's how thrash became a thing. And when I was a kid, all of the thrash metal bands that I listened to, they were all into punk. So I'd see pictures of Metallica wearing Discharge and GBH t-shirts, or Slayer, wearing DRI t-shirts, Agnostic Front. I used to discover a lot of new bands and new genres, subgenres, through my peers and the music they were listening to. You know, a classic thing from when I was a kid in the '80s was, you know, you'd buy the vinyl from the record store, and you just lie on your bed in your bedroom, listening to the new record, and you'd study the artwork, read all the lyrics, and then the thanks lists. There would be all of these bands you've never heard of before. So the next coming weeks, you would see those bands. You know, you would see the vinyl in the record store, and you're like, oh, I'll check that out. You know, that's how I discovered new music. Sometimes it was a flop. You know, it wasn't always a success, but that's pretty much how I got into, you know, other bands and other music and other genres. And I've always been a fan of punk and hardcore since I was a kid. And it's important for me as a musician to play other styles. I don't want to just be labeled as like a black metal drummer. You know, at some point I'd like to do like some kind of like funk or prog thing, you know, with the right musicians. But the Barstol came about because I love punk and hardcore, and I wanted to do something that reflected that taste in music that I like.
I think what you're talking about is quite a difficult challenge for a lot of artists of getting outside of the box, because eventually you can think about like artists like Venom, and you understand it's very difficult to imagine those people outside of the context of what they are doing. With, once again, with my entire love to Venom Incorporated, you know, hats off to Demolition Man and Mantas, but still, what you've done and what you've reached with your activity is quite a rare case of being associated with quite a large spectrum of extreme music, let's put it in this way. So it's a hell of a task.
Um, I don't think it's a hell of a task. It's I just like exploring new avenues and new genres and playing. You know, well, the greatest thing for me is playing with other musicians. You know, as many different musicians as possible, because the more different musicians you play with, the better musician you become yourself.
And also, you discover really unknown things about what you can do, in a sense that these people would lead you up to different venues, different ideas, something you haven't thought of really. That's something I discovered working with Mick Harris, even in a mental sense, because Mick is a really incredible person who would get you a different standpoint and put you in a position where you would see things in a different way.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Mick is a good guy.
How did you feel discovering Napalm Death?
Well, when I first heard Scum back in 1987, it absolutely, like everybody, it absolutely blew my mind. They were labeled as the fastest band in the world. And as a young drummer, I was really intrigued to, you know, check this out. And yeah, it was. I mean, Napalm Death they're pioneers. They're leaders, not followers. You know, they're innovators. They pretty much invented the grindcore. You know, and they the grindcore. Without Napalm Death, extreme music would be very different today.
And I'm asking about this specifically because we can't really imagine extreme music, specifically in the UK, without Earache. So, Napalm Death, Carcass, Godflesh, all these bands really, in my opinion, got an effect on anything that, was going on later on in the 90s, specifically, once again, to, the effect of the things you've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge fan of all the Earache roster back in the late '80s, early '90s. You know, and again, like with Earache, along with Peaceville, Nuclear Blast, you know, those three labels really took extreme music to the next level.
Obviously you are primarily known as a black metal drummer, but when you get outside of these things, let's say with Barstol, obviously the tempo would be different and you have more space to work on and less complexity of your play. Like, how does it make you feel in a compositional sense? Because obviously there are some things you might be doing most of the time that would eventually get into your comfort zone. So how do you feel getting outside of this comfort zone and doing something in a different way?
I like being out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay in your comfort zone, you can become quite complacent, and so I like the challenge of being out of my comfort zone, and that's why I love working with so many different musicians, because they tend to push me and take me out of my comfort zone. When I was recording the Shining album in Sweden with Nicholas,
Mm-hmm.
he loved. I was very fortunate. He loved all of the drums and the ideas that I had. He absolutely loved. But there was a few times where he was like, "No, I want it like this, a certain way," and he totally took me out of my comfort zone. And it takes a little while to adapt, because it's something new and kind of alien to you in a sense. But it's so rewarding and challenging, to be taken out of your comfort zone, and it makes you a better musician. It opens your mind. So I actually I prefer it. Working with musicians that take me out of the comfort zone, because it's so easy just to you know do your thing, and but for somebody to say no, faster, harder, make it like this, that's a challenge, and I'm always up for a challenge.
And did you get back to these experiences, let's say, like for example, I know that a lot of the artists who get through some artistic challenges, they never listen to what they've done.
Um, I when I record drums for a session, I once I've done the recording, I kind of put it away for some months until I get the final mix, and then I listen to it again. But well, once I've recorded something, I don't really listen to it so many times, because I'll start to pick it apart and criticize it. And, oh, I could have done this part better, and I wish I would have played that like this now. And so once I've done it, I kind of leave it and then move on.
And what obvious question would be, what helped you, Nick, to remain so active over these decades of your career? Because obviously you are one of one of very few musicians in extreme metal who has quite that big catalog of musical releases.
Well, music's my life. Like I can't imagine being without music for one day. Um, and I'm very lucky and fortunate that I've got a lot of musician friends, in many bands and across different countries. And so, you know, there's always somebody that needs a drummer. So, like, I live for music. Music is my life. It's in my heart. And I can't imagine doing anything else but music. So the whole kidney failure thing and my health issues right now is it's sometimes very hard to come to terms with, because I miss playing and being on the road, and traveling and being with like-minded artists. But yeah, I live for music. Music is my life, and even though I'm sick right now, I still play drums almost every day. I'm working on. I want to practice hard, so when I do finally get the kidney transplant and I come back, there's going to be a. I want people to think, "Wow, Barker's back."
And could you please give us some insights on like the ideas like you are working on right now? Is it just exercising, or there is like the new Boston material you are working on right now, or some ideas you might have for different projects?
Well, right now the Shining album's out, and so is the new Brujeria album.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I can't tour because of my dialysis schedule. Um, Also, we're in the process of recording the first Barstol album. Andy Sneap, the great producer, is a great friend. Andy Sneap has been helping us with the Barstol album, and so we're in the middle of doing that right now. And we also Barstol also have we're special guests on the Brujeria UK tour in next May. So that's worked out well, because the way the tour schedule for the UK means that I can go home and have my dialysis treatment and then go back on tour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worked out really good. It's great, actually. And that's really, to have a tour, even though it's only the UK. It's such a big thing for me mentally. Like for my headspace, it's really like a positive thing for me, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just practicing like exercises, feet and hands. I play along to my favorite death metal, black metal songs,
Mm-hmm.
Through the headphones, just to keep my stamina up. And I rehearse with Borstal, at least once a month. And I also jam with some local musicians here, like some old school friends. We have like a covers band thing, which is fun, and it keeps me busy.
What I find really difficult is that when you, once again, I'm speaking here purely about myself, like when you are in the music business, it's really difficult to stay objective. Even like, once again, if you are a musical journalist, you would be constantly analyzing everything you would hear, from the Black Sabbath songs to, I don't know, George Michael, whatever else. And it, like, how do you feel like about this specific musical situation where you can just do something for fun?
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I miss the touring schedule, because that was how I made a living. That's how I pay my bills. So the GoFundMe thing is really helping me out right now, because like I have no income, so that's really helping me out a lot, and I really appreciate everyone donating to that. But yeah, playing for fun is that. Well, for me, even though being a musician, it's my day job, it's so much fun, and I love it so much. It doesn't feel like a job, you know.
Mm-hmm.
My work is my hobby as well, and I love my work, so it's always fun. It's not fun when you have like a 10-hour delay at an airport, or your equipment's gone missing, and it's the day of the show. But I mean, right now, I would love, I would not complain at all. If I was stuck in an airport for 10 hours.
Sure. And there is also one interesting thing I came to about metal music, punk rock music, because all these people like you became professional musicians because they were fans, because of their talent and dedication, which is why I think, besides some universal aspects of being a musician, the work ethic might be different. And sometimes it's really amazing, like how dedicated, how professional, in like, not in a non-dogmatic sense, some of the people you might just came across in the music business are. Our mutual friend Shane Ambury, who is one of the hardworking people I know, like one of the most hardworking people I know.
He is, yeah, he is. He works too hard, actually, if you ask me. But I've always been focused and dedicated. This is what I've wanted to do with my life since I was a child. I remember seeing Iron Maiden. I think it was Run to the Hills or Number of the Beast on Top of the Pops in 1982. I was 9 years old, and I just that's what I want to do with my life. And it was the same at school, in high school, when the careers officer, the careers teacher, said, "What do you want to do?" Like, I want to be an engineer. I want to be an architect. I said, "No, I want a career in the music industry." and that's my focus. I've wanted that since I was a child, and I think if you're that focused and determined, eventually all the hard work and sacrifice will pay off. Because I was prepared to leave home, um, move to a totally different country, sleep on the floor, work at a gas station, just so I could make music.
And what did your teacher at school told you when you mentioned that you want to be a musician?
Oh, they laughed at me because the town where I'm from, Chesterfield, it's a very, very small-minded, working class kind of town. So there's that working class mentality, like, you're not allowed to have aspirations here. You either work down the coal mine or you work in the steel foundry.
Sure.
And I said, no, that's not for me. I want to work in the music industry. And they kind of laughed and ridiculed me, and I told them to go and fuck themselves.
Even though,
because it's
right now you understand.
It's a legitimate industry. So why can't I work in that industry? Because of where I'm from, that determines, how I'm going to live. No, I left this place when I was 18 to pursue music.
And right now you understand how that it is real. And another thing that is important to mention, that most of a lot of the great music, like the greatest artists, greatest singer, drummers, they came from the cities like Chesterfield. You can simply take Cocteau Twins.
Yeah. Well, look at Birmingham. A huge industrial town. Coal mines and steel. And not just heavy metal. I mean, there's Black Sabbath. Judas Priest, Napalm Death.
Godflesh.
ELO.
Yeah.
Godflesh. Duran Duran. Birmingham has such a rich history of music and art. It's I think that kind of environment, it makes young artists more determined to get the fuck out of there. Yeah, when you come from those kind of places, like parents and teachers, and they're it's you're not allowed to have aspirations. You're not allowed to have dreams. Because it's not real.
But it becomes real when you make a move to Norway, when nobody would truly think of, which is why a lot of the people know you, because you were the drummer who made that a hell of a journey in a different country with a different cultural context, and you've created some of the most memorable songs for the genre.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, getting to our initial topic of the conversation, was the fact that obviously with your health issues, and you understand it's not such a rare case. So maybe could you please give any advice to people who is listening to this podcast and experience similar health issues? What helps you to overcome things you are going through physically, mentally, and so on?
Well, the thing I would say to anyone that's going through chronic kidney disease or any serious health issues is listen to your doctor. And if your doctor is telling you to make lifestyle changes, then listen to him. And because that's where I messed up. I was my doctors told me 10 years ago, hey, you need to slow down and you need to take better care, and like the touring lifestyle, it's not healthy, and you need to pay more attention to your health. Oh yeah, I'll be fine. And it's then in the blink of an eye, 10 years has just passed, and then I'm here where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you think you're invincible, you think you're immortal, and obviously when you hit like mid 40s, 50, that's when you realize you're not immortal, and you know, you need to pay attention to what the professionals say regarding your health.
Sure.
But I think for me, this had to happen to me to make me realize, because that's just the type, that's my personality, oh, I'm not sick, I'll be fine. But then, I got sick, and now I understand the seriousness of my health, and how important it is. So this really had to happen for me to pay attention and to make the changes that needed to happen.
Sure, but obviously, just like anybody who's listening to this podcast, we hope you would be finding that your current program of treatment wouldn't be as painful as what you've described to me at the beginning of this conversation. Getting to my last question for today, obviously, the new Brujeria album just came out, which is one of the longest, projects you've been a part of. So, how do you feel about this specific work of the band and what you've done, once again, being the member since probably early 2000s? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Late 90s. I think 99 is when I joined. Yeah, I mean, I think the new album's more extreme than the last album. There's a lot more blast beats on it, and we even have like a mariachi trumpet guy on it too. So, Brujeria is always fun. It's yeah, it's a lot of fun to be with those guys, and the music the music actually we write the music pretty quick. Once we get in the room together and we bounce ideas off of each other, it comes together really quick. But the magic is with the vocals. Thank you, and I just want to thank everyone that supports me, and everyone that follows my music, and I really appreciate all the support. It's truly humbling.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone.